All right, thanks everybody for joining today. It's an exciting time, so we'll just dive right into it. I have received no funding and there's no conflict of interest to declare at this time. I will say that, you know, I taught for a lot of years, so I've read a lot of student papers, and I've been involved in many, submitting many articles for publication, and also for reviewing articles that are sent for publication. And, you know, I've learned a lot about the process of publication, submitting, et cetera, in that time. So I'm hoping today, it's not going to be a how-to, more of an overview of the processes and some of the key things to note when you're submitting an article. So today I'd like you to end the course by being able to identify the essential processes related to writing and publishing an academic article and understand the structures of journals, which is pretty important in this day and age. And I think you'll see why as we move forward. So there are a lot of reasons to publish. Some are listed here. So really to develop collegiality with coworkers, collaborators on scholarship. And it's an interesting opportunity at times to get to know people that don't live in your area or don't work in the same location that you do. Certainly national and international collaborations are a lot of fun. And, you know, you get information about different conferences you might wish to go to. You get information from different people about the kinds of research that's being done in the area and in their facility. So sharing expertise is the next one. So becoming familiar with others' work on your topic. And this can be really interesting because sometimes you just read journal articles based on your topic and you don't really get a sense, you don't get a real sense of the people behind them. But this sort of publishing can help you do that. If you aren't an academic, but you are a practitioner, it's a really important way to promote your practice and visibility and profile. People who work as a nurse practitioner, as a nurse, they have huge amounts of expertise to share. And that's really an important feature to be able to publish for that. And definitely expanding your own CV for either employment or academic pursuits. Say you're trying to get into a graduate program, it's very helpful. So it says a lot about you to publish, and it may be the thing that separates you from other people. Okay, so you start with an idea. Now your situation might be very different from people who typically publish in academic articles, but don't be discouraged. And don't forget that you have a wealth of experience. An idea may come to you from clinical practice, or you may be part of a research or writing team. You may be a student. So regardless of the catalyst, every article starts with an idea. Developing that idea to the point where it's an article requires determination, because it's a very long process. However, the process may seem daunting, but the rest of this webinar, I'm going to try to break things down for you as you go. Okay, so this is assuming that you've done a literature search and you know that your idea is unique enough that you can market it and you can send it out as an article as itself, that you are meeting a gap in what is known or adding to current body of literature. So be specific. I mean, I can't say this enough. When you're thinking of your idea, any idea, much like research, is going to be unwielding and really difficult, and probably won't get published if you're wanting to publish on everything about the topic. So I gave an example here. Perhaps you'd like to write a scoping review that explores the reaction of a child to the birth of a sibling. That's a pretty big topic. And it's a good idea, but maybe better than that would be the impact of the birth of a sibling on an only child, or the impact of the birth of a sibling on an only child who's 5 years age or older. Sometimes you have to dig that down to be that specific. So keep that in mind as you are trying to develop the idea, and go to other journals, go to the articles written about this to see where the biggest gaps might be. Okay, your team. Choose your team wisely. The roles and responsibilities of everybody on your writing team should be clear. They can certainly have academic, social, and financial implications. And you'll understand a bit more about that as we move through. And teamwork can be tough, can be really tough. Really, do the team members have the same focus or idea of the work as you do? Sometimes this is a no-brainer. Yes, they do, and it's not ideal. Do they have the same understanding to commitments for deadlines? Or do they ignore your emails and let things slide for 2 months while you're waiting to go? If you have great ideas but have trouble writing, let them know. So sometimes the team members can have skills and that will help offset some of the problems that you have with writing. You can work together and draw on each other's strengths. Really, anybody who's listed as an author should have contributed substantially to the conception of the paper or the collection, analysis, interpretation of the data, contributed to the writing and revisions, approved the final version for publication, and be accountable for ensuring that all inquiries related to the accuracy or integrity are met. Another decision is the order of the authors, which is done before you start writing, should be anyway. Author order denotes certain things depending on what field you're in. In some science fields, particularly if you're a graduate student, you're the first author, and then there are contributors, and then the final person is the senior person on the team or the supervisor. But in many other fields, and with APA formatting, the authors are listed with the first being the one who made the most substantial contribution to the article or research, with each other authors ranked in descending order based on their level of contribution. The journal might request a statement about the contribution of each of the authors. And in addition, it's common to have an expectation clearly posted and statement by authors attesting that their work is not plagiarized. There is a responsibility of the first author or author that communicates with the journal to collect all the information that's required for the submission, to communicate, answer any questions that the editor might have, and to collate all the responses to the reviewers. Now, there's more about authorship, and I'll get into that in a few minutes. Okay, so what's next? Finding a journal. Now, don't start writing yet. It's a lot easier if you write the article according to the journal formatting, but we'll get into that. Do a search of journals to find out what that might be a good fit for your article, so your idea. So check the, I mean, this is an easy thing to do. Add keywords into a search engine like nursing, journal, prenatal, see what comes up. So find the journals and go to their websites. And then go to the websites of the journals that you already know, and maybe articles that you've already read. And see whether, read the aims of the journal and the articles that you've chosen to see what might be the best match for your article. This is a very important step, because even though every journal has similar headings to use when writing articles, they all have their own formatting criteria, and you don't want to finish an article and then have to rewrite parts to meet the journal requirements, or write an entire journal article based on those requirements and find that they don't match, the aims don't match what the journal is expecting. So you have to make decisions about such things also as whether the journal is open access or subscription based. And keep in mind that many journals are discontinuing their print options for in favor of online. Okay, what's going on here? All right, there we go. Okay, so there are some very significant differences between the type of articles that you get. Articles that you can access through a subscription, through university or hospital library, or a membership to an organization are free to you because of those memberships. But the articles might not be free to anybody else. So when you publish them online, they'll be published online and you can get them online, but nobody outside of that membership can see them. There are open access articles and journals where they'll publish something that is open to the public, but in many cases you have to pay an article processing charge, and this can range from $1,000 to $5,000 US, enormous. Some universities have subscriptions with the journal that will offset the APC costs, and some people have access to funding through their research that will help to offset these costs. But in many cases, it's extremely difficult for people to obtain funding, and it's a burden, a personal burden for them to publish in those journals. There are journals, however, that are open access, so free access to for people to publish, and they're free online. And those are two that I work for: Diversity of Research in Health and the Nurse Practitioner Open Journal. So when you're looking for a journal, it's really important to know before you write the article and are prepared to submit whether or not you have to pay. And there are times when it's a membership or subscription-based journal that gives you the option to pay as, you know, during the publishing stage. But again, it'll be up to you. It's also important to evaluate the quality of the journal. So ask yourself, does it have a peer review process? So all content other than editorial material should be subject to a peer review. The most commonly used and accepted peer review process is a double-blind review where the reviewers are unaware of the authors and the authors are unaware of the reviewers. So peer reviews are obtained on each manuscript, and the reviewers who are experts in their field and should not be part of the journal's editorial staff. Peer review processes and policies should be clearly outlined on the journal website. Governance is about, they should have editorial boards, the journals, and other governing bodies whose members are recognized experts in the journal's subject areas. The full names and affiliations of the journal's editors should be provided on the journal's website. The names, affiliations, contact information of the editorial team should be provided on the website. Okay, so article processing charges we just talked about and other author fees should be clearly outlined in a place that's easy to see for potential authors prior to submitting their manuscript. Copyright is another issue, and we'll get into more on that in a minute, but licensing and copyright should be clearly described on the journal's website as well. There should be processes and policies for different things, and they should be clearly stated on the journal's website. Things like revenue sources, author fees, subscriptions, advertising, reprints, institutional support, and organizational support. Advertising, so the types of ads that will be considered, who makes decisions about the ads, and how are they displayed, and direct marketing. So other items that should be clearly evident on the website are things like ownership and management. We talked a little bit of that already. They need to demonstrate that care has been taken to ensure high ethical, quality, and professional standards. The name of the journal should be unique enough not to be confused with other journals. Access should be clearly outlined. And the archiving. So if this journal folds and doesn't offer anything anymore, is there a way for preservation of the archived material to be available over time? Now, finally, the impact factor, and this is a big to-do for a lot of people, but it's actually only one measure of the quality of a journal, and it's a calculation based on the frequency in a year with which an average article has been cited. So they take all the articles that have been published in a year, and they see how many times that article has been cited in other journals, and they create an impact factor. So yeah, I mean, the rank of importance of a journal is calculated using that number, but it's been criticized because the focus of some journals is narrow and doesn't lead to a lot of citations. And it's also not a measure of the quality of the research or articles within the journal. So you might not consider that as highly potentially as others. But of course, if you get your article published in a really high ranking journal, that's definitely something to be proud of. You also have to be cautious of journals that don't operate with high ethical standards, and those are deemed as predatory journals. And it can be difficult to find out which is a predatory journal or not. And it can be very enticing, particularly because you may get a lot of emails like, come publish with us, we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. So dig a little bit into it. There are lists, and I've added some websites here that will give you the names of predatory journals and more information about those. Okay, there are different types of copyright as well. There are two basic ones. One, the author retains copyright, or the journal obtains copyright. So some more things to look at when you're choosing a journal. Again, the aim of the journal. What is the purpose of this journal? Does this journal focus on pediatrics, but you have a really great article about the older population? Well, I mean, that's a clear no, it's not okay. So really look a little carefully and make sure that you're aligned. The types of articles should also be listed. So they may tell you that they publish concept analyses, for example. Some of them don't. And if you submit one, it may be rejected because of that. Some only publish double-blind placebo-controlled studies. Others will publish a range of things, so be sure. But if you're not sure about whether an article is a good fit for the journal, send the editor an email and say, this is what I'm thinking of writing. Here's a draft abstract. What do you think? They're often really good to get back to you about things. All right, so most people are aware that, yes, there are definitely author guidelines. So with information about and general information about how to write an article for a particular journal. So pay attention to this. You have no idea how frustrating it is to have author guidelines on a journal, on the journal page, and have people submit whatever they want. It's like, and it does create delays, and sometimes I just reformat things myself if it's not too onerous, but it's delays in getting the things out to reviewers and all that kind of thing. So if you don't follow the guidelines, you run the risk of the article being returned with instructions to format it correctly. So I suggest people download the articles themselves, cut and paste, and have those on hand, and actually write the article from the guidelines. Okay, I'm not going to get into too much about citation tools, except that they are amazingly helpful. We have Zotero, which is free at it's free for anybody. That's what they have at our university. There's something like 16 other ones that are free. You can get a synced, and then draw upon expertise of others if you have trouble writing things. So the journals have their own submission processes that can be accessed through the journal website. And although the systems are different, the information required tends to be about the same for each one. Your article undergoes a quick review by the editor, make sure it's okay. At this point, it might be unsubmitted. And again, you may be asked to change the formatting. Sometimes it's not a good fit for the journal, or sometimes they've already published several articles with the same kind of focus, and the editor may tell you that. And you know what? Don't be discouraged, because it's not an outright, it's not an evaluation of how good the article is or not. It's an evaluation of whether it's a good fit for the journal at this stage. So your article, if it's accepted, will then be moved to the review stage. And it can take from 6 weeks to several months. And in one case, I had a year. So I mean, one thing I've noticed as an editor, people are impatient, and I understand that, because you want to move things along. But I get a lot of emails, where is it at? I would say that the biggest hurdle is getting reviewers. People are so busy and stressed that it's hard for them to take the time to review your article. So anyway, when the reviewers have finished, the editor receives the reviews and you get a decision, and it could be reject, could be accept with minor revisions, accept with major revisions, or send to production. I've never had one sent to production, but that's okay. At each stage, the reviewer and editor's comments should be available to you, and the comments are a valuable source for you to edit and resubmit to another journal if it's been rejected, and to revise. So it can be a bit daunting, but we'll get through this. Okay, I think it'd be a bit daunting because one of the huge benefits is that it's blinded. But one of the drawbacks is that I think people often are willing to say things about your paper that they'd never say to you in person. Even if they don't like it or they're critical of it, the critique can sometimes be very harsh. I've learned to let go and not take things personally. Don't take it personally. I say when you get to the revision stage, be happy and celebrate, because you're almost there. 99% of the time, the revisions are accepted and you move on and it gets published. So just deep breath, find a way to go through the revisions in a really systematic way that helps the editor in particular, demonstrates to the editor how you have systematically addressed each of the reviewer's comments. Okay, when it's ready to go, when it's accepted for publication, it'll be sent to production where it's formatted into the style of a journal, and there may still be issues. So you get a proof. So the proof is a draft of your article in the final format for the journal. The production editor may have specific questions about the proof, and often things like, are the qualifications or the names of the authors correct, that sort of thing. Credentials, for example, and you'll be given the opportunity to answer their questions and read through it and provide a little bit of feedback. But you know what? This is not a revision stage. This is only to correct tiny little errors. They do not want you to revise whole paragraphs, and you'll delay the process quite a bit if you do that. Okay, so here's a peer review process. You can see it's very long and involved, lots of different steps. You make your life a lot easier and make things a lot better if you follow the if you do the work up front and follow the journal guidelines, follow the aim of the journal, write succinctly and well, and make sure that you're meeting these criteria. Oops, going too fast. Okay, so now that your article has been accepted and you've reviewed the proofs, the next step is publication. If you've agreed to and paid any required fees for open access, your article would likely be published to the journal's website very quickly and then added to an issue later on. If you've opted for a subscription-based publication, your article will be assigned to an issue and you may have to wait for a period of time after that's what's published. Again, I waited almost a year for one of my articles to be published in a subscription-based journal. Okay, it's just the way it is. No matter how your article is published, this is a huge accomplishment. So congratulations, and share it. Share as you're able through social media, with your friends and family, you know, all that kind of thing. Here's the celebration, depending.